first topic I want to get into is games that ruin you. But really, it's more a topic about video game addiction.
Yeah.
Now, we attempted this before, and actually halfway, into it, we kind of realised we hadn't done enough genuine research or background reading, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But this time I kind of decided to come a little bit better prepared. The angle I want to take before we even get into the games that ruin you is to basically kind of ask certain questions. Is video games addiction actually real? Yeah, or is it just media hype and people looking for something to blame?
I think it does. I think it exists. I think it does, and I think it's not. It's obviously individual to individual, right? We all have our own little kind of vices here and there, and video game addiction is definitely a thing. And it can happen to almost anyone. And it's so. The way games are designed, the way certain mechanics are designed, causes it to be more likely, I would say, in some cases for certain games that would result in that. And I think it's designed in such a way to be able to try and take advantage of that. And then the more deeper, kind of like darker side is that gambling kind of portion of it. Yeah, that's my initial thoughts.
Definitely would agree. Al, definitely would agree. And to be honest, Wikipedia has a definition. They've even given it an acronym. VGA, video game addiction. Yeah? And what they've done is, I'll kind of read the definition. It's, video game addiction, VGA, also known as gaming disorder or internet gaming disorder. Yeah? And it's generally defined as the problematic compulsive use of video games that results in significant impairment to an individual's ability to function in various life domains over a prolonged period of time. It's been recorded as a thing, if you know what I mean. The World Health Organization has included gaming disorder in the 11th revision of its International Classification of Diseases, the ICD.
To me, it's like I'm not sure it can be classed as a disease, but I'm not from the medical field. I mean, is it infectious?
It's like mental diseases. There's physical kind of diseases. There's viruses. I think they're thinking along those sorts of lines. The American Psychiatric Association, the APA, it actually doesn't recognise video game addiction as a disorder. Based on the existing evidence, but it's included video game addiction as a condition requiring further study. So it's been taken as kind of real. Yeah, and the APA itself, they've actually developed 9 criteria categorizing internet gaming disorder. Yeah, can you imagine? There are 9 criteria.
And how many of these do we need to tick before we're?
No idea. Still under investigation. So, I'll kind of read them out, but I won't go into kind of like any kind of reams of detail or anything like that. There's preoccupation, withdrawal, tolerance, reduce and /stop, giving up other activities, to continue despite problems, deceiving cover-up, escape adverse moods, and risk lose relationships and opportunities. So pretty much sounds like any other sort of addiction, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And one thing that came up as I was kind of doing some background reading and research for this is that it seems there's been a surge in, let's say, gaming disorders or video games addiction since the pandemic. Obviously we know everybody's had to stay at home. Gaming numbers and participation has generally gone up. Sales have gone up. We've seen that from Xboxes and PlayStation's kind of sales numbers, Steam sales numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's there was something reported by the Financial Times in December 2021, and there's actually a National Centre for Gaming Disorders, I think in the UK, and that opened in 2019, and it's actually run by the Central and Northwest London NHS Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time, it was overwhelmed by referrals from schools, GPs, and parents. Yeah, around 70% of those who were treated since it was opened were aged 18 or under, and 90% were male. But I will say that there's a Professor Henrietta Bolden-Jones, who's the director of the centre, warned that it needed to triple its workforce to treat the more than 100 patients on its waiting list and to meet future demand, which is, it's expected to increase in 2022. They're treating 50 patients a year, which in the grand scheme of things isn't massive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it shows there's a specialist centre for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Potentially growing.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those that it's one of the consequences of how successful gaming is, right? Especially for actually being how should I say? There's the positive side of actually keeping people busy and actually keeping them relatively sane over the pandemic period, right? So yes, there's probably a small percentage of people that have gone really deep in terms of the addiction, and not sleeping, not looking after themselves, breaking relationships and other things. But I think that's always going to happen, right? With there will certain people that will be so susceptible to these things, and it's just an unfortunate side effect. I think.
I guess it's everything you would say about balance, right? In anything you do, there has to be a balance that needs to be maintained, and once you go over the edge, or you kind of tip that balance, then things potentially get ugly.
Yeah.
But it is definitely looking like a real thing, because there are treatment centres seemingly all over the world now. It's been set up to treat gaming and online addiction, if you like.
Yeah.
And to be a bit more precise, what I mean by online addiction is just not it's not only about games. It's like social media, and all of that sort of thing. Being online, typically speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, if I look over some of my notes, it's what we're talking about is, for instance, treatment in the US is typically private. Yeah. There was a clinic in the Netherlands that has recently, basically closed down. China takes an actual hard line, a boot camp like approach to it.
That quote on the Netherlands one's interesting though. The stating that 90% of the young people who seek treatment for compulsive computing gaming are not actually addicted.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, the guy who opened the clinic in the Netherlands, and it's a private clinic, mind you, did say that.
But I guess it's quite interesting. It depends if the young person was actually themselves admitting themselves in. If it was their parents admitting them in, it's quite different, I think.
Yeah, but then again, is that because people have not much of an understanding of what, let's say, gaming is, or what the hobby is. There's an element that, to the uninitiated, that just looks like strange behaviour, right?
Yeah, not normal.
Yeah, not normal. So there's a side to it like that. But China taking the hardline bootcamp like approach, where a person called Deng San Shan was reportedly beaten to death.
Oh, God.
And they call it a correctional facility.
Oh no.
Yeah, and we know that China themselves obviously have put kind of hard restrictions on who can play games and for how long.
Yeah.
So they are taking this extremely seriously.
Yeah.
Canada has a computer addiction services centre, and they say gaming addiction is 80% of one youth counsellor's caseload.
Wow.
Yeah, 80%. And what's interesting to me is the Priory, the famous clinic for alcoholism, drug addiction in the UK, now offers video games addiction services.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually break that down between single player and multiplayer video games.
That's
That was the
pretty
thing that kind
specific.
of, yeah, that's very specific. That kind of knocked me on my arse. I thought, wow, you've got to be joking. And I think to end, this part of the conversation, like the UK NHS, unsurprisingly, is a late starter. Their treatment centre started in 2018, in the same treatment centre we just discussed earlier. And, basically it was, time just before the pandemic hit, and obviously cases kind of tripled in 2019. The demographic is also quite interesting. I mean, what the stats will tell you is there's like 2 billion people playing video games globally on whatever platform, whether it PC, mobile, or console.
Yeah.
Or maybe even web browser.
Yeah.
Of the 2 billion, 150 million are located in the US. And online video games addiction statistics show that anywhere from 1 to 10% of gamers have compulsive addiction issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. 64% of the US population are gamers, which is, to my mind, massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. The average gamer is 30 years old, 33 years old.
Yeah.
The average female gamer is 37 years old. Males between the ages of 18 and 24 are most at risk of gaming addiction. And 94% of males and 6% of females represent the gender breakdown for gaming addiction. And the last stat, really didn't know it was really that relevant, but they've broken gaming addiction down, through ethnicity. So it's 69% are Caucasian, 13% are Asian, and 18% of other ethnic backgrounds. But I wasn't really sure what the baseline was. I mean, I'm assuming it was in the US.
Yeah, I think to gather those kind of statistics, they would have to probably gather it in the US, and then the demographic then probably looks about right, and stuff like that.
What I take away from this is there are people actually doing real studies of this sort of thing.
And the 1 to 10%, I think, doesn't surprise me on the impact.
Yeah, not at all. Now, going back to games that ruin you, and having given all of these statistics, and having really, I think what we're saying is that video games addiction is actually something it's getting real. If you know what I mean, it's getting real.
Yeah.
There are people taking it, in states taking it extremely seriously. For example, there's no way the UK NHS would have kind of invested money and budget into it if it didn't think it was a real thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously China's the other end of the spectrum. So it's getting real.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I'm with you in that I think as anything gets a bit more popular, as the participation numbers start to grow, then maintaining that balance, maintaining that healthy balance, is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
It's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that fall by the wayside.
Yeah, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, whereby I've seen at least some mechanisms being put in place by various companies to try and at least protect some of that kind of behavior as well, because back in the real past, you've listed World of Warcraft there, but I would take the extreme ones being things like StarCraft, and the classic ones are, and the most extreme ones are the ones in South Korea, where the players would play 7 days or something on the trot in an internet cafe, not go shower, not go eat, not go anything, and literally just keel over and die. That's as far as they go in terms of being addicted and not being able to take care of themselves, right? And those stories were pretty prevalent, I think, in Korea, and I believe they've got an actual specific term and name for it, and they do try and limit those kind of things happening now, and at least putting placeholders around how much time people can actually play, and just making sure that there is things for them to get help around it.
Indeed. And for anybody listening to this, when Al said, "I see you've got World of Warcraft there listed,"
I was
we
pretty
have
deep.
notes. We have notes basically that we're referring to. I should point that out. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, but if you look at, additional stats about the kinds of games that are played, I mean, multiplayer online game statistics show that 22% of gamers spent between 61 to 80% of their time playing multiplayer online games.
Yeah.
And kind of hold that thought in your head. Yeah. The most addictive video games include massively multiplayer online games, i.e. your Warcrafts.
Yeah.
And role-playing games. Your RPGs.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've talked about what was listed as some of the most addictive video games played today. That include, obviously, Fortnite. It's played by, more than 200 million people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And has made, $1.2 billion through V-Bucks, their in-game, currency.
Yeah.
There's League of Legends, obviously World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed. Why that's on the list, I'm not even sure.
Yeah, that's a strange one.
Yeah, it is a strange one. But if you look at it, we've got more free to play. That's a whole genre now.
Yeah.
We've got Final Fantasy 14, that to a degree is taken some, I think, market share from World of Warcraft for that type of like fantasy role playing, MMO.
Yeah. Yeah.
Genshin Impact.
Yeah.
Destiny.
Yeah.
Warframe. Overwatch. Apex. Minecraft. Valorant. Sea of Thieves, and the list goes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much out there, right? There's so much out there. Yeah. And that just tells me that companies, they know which side, they know where their bread is buttered. Now, given all that information, yeah, and having that kind of those facts presented to you, I will say, what games actually ruined you personally and why? Now, I'll start off, right, because that'll make the things a bit easier. I'm going to call out Football Manager straight away. Because that's definitely one game that I used to play during university, where I literally had played that for almost 24 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
In one sitting. Not healthy. I missed lectures because of this thing.
It was such a classic. You just keep playing. That it was always one more day, one more session, one more match.
I was literally away for a week because of that game. Diablo 3, unwittingly spent hundreds or 500 hours of my time on it.
Yeah.
Warframe, where I used to get in kind of a quick 30-minute game just before I'd go to work for months.
Yeah.
So those were my guilty pleasures, really, if I'm being honest. How about you, Al?
I mean, Football Manager was a close one for me. Was I as bad? Probably not. I would have said for me, very much Counter-Strike. As in Counter-Strike, it was 0.8, and obviously Source as it's known now, and stuff like that. But Counter-Strike I played so much, and I guess it was probably during times of like university and just after university and stuff like that, which was obviously kind of kept had kind of enough spare time to kind of play that sort of stuff. And most definitely Diablo 2. Diablo 2 for me was, I'd be playing that stuff all the way 2, 3, 4 in the morning, running Mephisto runs consistently, constantly. I got to the point where I was almost, I was quite ready to sign up to be a gold seller. Sell items for and sell it to a company that can make cash from it and stuff like that. And obviously, for me, World of Warcraft was a big one. I sunk so much time and effort into it. And I think it was one of those that the community of people that was in there, and both from a raid leading perspective and guild leading perspective, that stuff consumed. It was literally a second job, and it did consume so much of my life and time in there.
I mean, I'll definitely say that some of these games are definite time sinks. If you don't manage yourself carefully enough, then they're gonna ruin you. But equally, the other reason we play some of these games, I'll talk to kind of like Diablo 3 and Destiny, is because we've got friends playing it.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So it's a bit more social. So there's that side of things. But would you say that the impact changes with time and age?
Yes, I think so. I think the experience that I've built through that, things like Genshin don't grab me as it would have used to. Other games like, you can argue Diablo Immortal that we've been playing recently, and other games, I just don't fall for that same trap anymore, as it was before. And maybe I've seen all those tactics that they played before, and actually, maybe I'm also, there's the nostalgia angle too, World of Warcraft, I built, a good network of friends, it was great fun, there was social angles to it, but, in the other games, I've almost not been jumped into that kind of level of being stuck into, with a group of friends or made new friends in there to kind of stick with it and stuff. So, I recognize the problems, and I think that's just the way we've kind of aged and matured. We've recognized these things. No longer are we, I don't know, playing a game until 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. until the crack of dawn. The birds are singing.
We almost did with Destiny. That was like 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago at most. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've kind of learned from it. It's just like, it's fine. We'll leave it for tomorrow. I will go to sleep. Sometimes I think now my priority around sleep is quite significant. So.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Our priorities have somewhat changed. That's what it comes down. That's right. With that said, I think games are designed to be addictive.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They are designed for that instant gratification. You got loot boxes, which, and some people say, this is gambling. So the design of games can be a problem.
Yeah.
But is the games industry really doing enough here?
I think the protections aren't all there yet. I think that's the problem. There's definitely subtle things in there, but it's not quite enough. And
it's not consistent, is it?
Yeah, but then again, maybe it's also as part of the strange kind of like, you can always call it Big Brother kind of mentality, is that if the games company then tracks this information and says it back to you, have you even signed up to the fact? Do you even want to be solicited in that way? But maybe that should be part of the terms and conditions, is that, if you do sign up and play this game, that the Big Brother statistics should be utilized in a way to protect you. And, if you then, let's call it, if you get a few of those messages and you decide to ignore it or opt out of those things, then there's nothing a company can do, right, in terms of under, people's right to do whatever the hell they want. So
yeah, indeed. I mean, I just think it needs to be a bit more consistent. I think it needs the games industry to kind of like come together, and you kind of want to be in control of your own destiny, don't you?
Yeah. It's just it's just one of those. It's some basic things, right, around the amount of time people spend on it, the amount of it's just like an ethical side of things. Is that there's just an ethical standards that they should all be kind of collectively coming towards.
Yeah, but I'm sure they could even measure if you were playing a game for 12 hours straight.
Yes, exactly. If you're doing something like that, then, and actually, if you're actually active throughout that whole time, that's bad, right? So you should be, they have these statistics if they want it. But I think they're just treading that difficult ground, and they need to put it as legal terms and conditions.
Correct, but I also feel there needs to be a duty of care in terms of extreme cases.
Yeah, for sure. And they really should do some basic guardrails, is what I would call it.
Yeah, I think so. And a consistent agreement between everybody. This is the way we kind of like are going to protect our fans and our gamers.
Yeah.
That would go a long way, I think, to helping improve things. I think. I mean, it's not to say that things are necessarily terrible, but I just think this is a widely unreported kind of issue.
Oh yeah.
It's not necessarily as widespread as some issues, but it's an issue.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure that that all the evidence we've seen about gaming addiction is actually necessarily reliable, because it's a definition sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
There's what's normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's normal.
Yeah.
And some organisations recognise it as a real disorder, some don't. So there's clearly there's maturity. We need to mature with it.
Well, even on the original definitions of the disorder, I was looking through it and thinking like I'm probably mildly on every single one of those. It's like,
of course.
but that's kind of normal for a gamer, is I would say. And then you say like, well, okay, what is not normal for a gamer? What's the extreme end of it? What's the danger associated with it? And
but think on this one. This is a bit more a challenge to the whole idea of kind of spending hours and hours on a game is not normal.
Yeah.
If I spent hours on hours either playing tennis or basically playing football, would that be normal?
In certain people's eyes, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Weirdly, and it's just like, well, and this is the thing, right? I think this is where, well, if they are just using it to be preoccupied, if people are using, this is like watching TV or watching TV series or Netflix or others. There's if people are just deliberately wasting their time on that stuff, then that's perfectly fine. And same with gaming. And but I think there must be an extreme level. There must be a certain point at which you go like, that's just too much.
Yeah, but I honestly don't. I don't think we consume video and audio the same way we consume video games.
Oh yeah, there's different levels of activity involved, right? So.
Yeah, video games is definitely a hobby. It's definitely something that requires skill. In many cases.
Yeah.
It's in a strategy and an approach and all of this sort of thing. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I mean, what I will say is, what I'll conclude this conversation with is, will the games industry intervene before the governments do? Should they?
Should they?
Yeah, I'll say straight from the off, I think they should.
They should, because actually I think there's the extremes, right? If you take China, they may take it too far and squeeze the game companies to it works detrimental to, it's kind of like lose-lose situations then as a result. Whereas if you kind of put some goodwill and actually put some good safeguards ahead of it, then it's a win-win. So yeah, I think I agree with you. If they can put some extra time in it, that'll be great. But it's one of those things is like, if you don't do it, then you get clamped in multiple different countries, right? That's what you'll get.
Yeah, your destiny is no longer in your hands.
Yeah.
I think from my look, number one, it would be the right thing to do. You have a duty of care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number two, from a business standpoint, you're basically taking your destiny in your own hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we're starting to see this, let's say, movement around accessibility of games, and people investing crazy amounts of effort.
Oh yeah.
Trying to make games accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
But why, then, are we not basically putting in crazy amounts of time and effort into making sure that gamers are protected?
Yeah. Well, I think if it's accessibility, it gives you more people that's playing, more revenue generation. I mean, putting guardrails around gaming restricts the game's, how much you're playing.
Yeah, they don't have to be hard gates. Yeah. One thing, and just because you've got these gates, I don't think it would stop anybody buying the game. Yeah, so that's my kind of counter argument to that.
Yeah,
I'd understand it certainly, but I just think to myself, is that really going to stop anybody buying the game? And let's say,
no.
You stop somebody from playing the game, let's say, 15 hours straight, or whatever it might be. Yeah, but you allow them now you've got to take a bit of a.
This goes into the free to play time gated model. And you pay. Well, their solution is that you pay to get through the time gate rather than rather than actually use the time gate to actually stop playing.
Yeah, well, I
The
think that,
term
I
and the
think
term
equally
that's
that's
out
even
there,
that's even
the
worse.
term
Yeah.
that's out there in the gaming world is touching grass. So you're
Yeah.
going out and actually, enjoying a bit of the world. So if they can encourage that, it'd be much better. But I think free to play model actually works in the reverse and actually tries to take advantage of it by making you pay for it.
Yeah, I think that's just an awful sounding thing. It's just like, that doesn't sit well with me at all. It's almost encouraging the behaviour, which is like, not the direction I believe we should be going in.
Yeah, yeah.
But those are my thoughts on video games addiction, games that ruin you. You know, I do really think that the game industry need to band together, intervene before a government does,
Yeah,
or a
yeah,
set of governments does, put together some, ethical controls and gates
yeah, yeah,
and approaches for this, without kind of like diluting, what makes a good game.
yeah.
They don't have to do that. That I'm certainly not asking.
Yeah, there's some very basic things that they could do together, and
Yeah.
they've pushed the extremes now with loot boxes and stuff, and I think games like, I don't know, Diablo Immortal, I think is pushed that boundary too far on no limits associated with how much you can spend on these things.
Yeah. But it's an interesting area, and I think it's a space that we should kind of watch very carefully. Left unchecked, it could mean not great things for gaming.
Indeed, indeed.
Once that door gets opened, you lose control. You lose more than that. That specific part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
All eyes on you in that scenario.
Yep.
Well, Al, I think we're done for video games addiction and games that ruin you for now. I think we're agreed.
Yep.
I think the video games industry should intervene. Video games addiction starting to look more and more real.
Yep, yep.
And, let's be proactive. Let's hope the industry are proactive. Let's hope we as gamers are a bit more proactive about the issues.
Yep. Agreed.
And with that said, let's move on to the next topic.